FM. Online, gobrave.org. A tune-in radio station. Part of the William Patterson Broadcast Network.
Broadcasting live from Hobart Hall in Wayne, New Jersey.
This is
The Innovative.
I think they're really unique.
The Fearless.
They have awesome variety.
The Kick-Ass.
I love Brave New Radio.
The Sensational.
I've never heard anything like it.
This is the one and only Brave New Radio.
Opinions expressed on this show are solely those of the hosts and guests and are not necessarily supported by WP 88.7 FM, station management, or the station owner, William Patterson University. Anyone wanting to offer differing opinions may do so by calling this show at 973-720-2738. Abusive callers will be rejected. Now here's your program on WP 88.7 FM, Brave New Radio.
Well, good morning, good morning. Good morning to you, and it is a wonderful morning indeed, particularly when I can wake up in early March and walk out of the house without a coat. The weather is that warm here in northern New Jersey. I'll talk a little bit about that in a couple of minutes, but if you can hear the sound of my voice, that means you're listening to another edition of the Reading Circle with your host, Marc Medley. We come to you live each Saturday morning at this hour from 6 o'clock a.m. to 7 o'clock a.m., where we bring you what's going on in the literary world. And so we're going to do that this morning. But for those of you who have been listening any amount of time, you know that we have a ritual and routine, as we say in school. When we follow that format each Saturday morning, that's where I read from two selections. I give you the weather. Actually, it's the other way around. I give you the weather first, then I read from two selections, introduce my guests. We go to a public service announcement where I share some information with you, and then we come back and resume our interview. Now, this is the rules. Each time that we go to an information sharing time, you are to get on your social media sites and let someone know that my guest is on the air with me and that the Reading Circle is on the air, that they need to tune in. Get up early. Text them, tweet them. You do whatever you need to do in terms of social media or getting in contact. Or if you want to do it the old-fashioned way and just pick up the telephone and call, you can do that too. But tell them I have a guest on the line and you need to hear her message. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and let you know what's going on in the weather. Right now, it's 34.1 degrees here in the Wayne, New Jersey area. We're expecting a mix of clouds and sun. High of 63 today, low of 44. I told you a minute ago I was able to walk out the door with nothing but my jacket on. Didn't have to put on a big winter coat. Expect tonight to be partly cloudy, a low of 44. Then on tomorrow, Sunday, a high of 64 and a low of 42. A mix of clouds and sun in the morning, followed by cloudy skies during the afternoon. Cloudy with occasional rain showers on Sunday night. 50% chance of rain Sunday night, 10% during the day. Then on Monday, rain, high of 43. And then we are going to keep those same numbers during the evening, 43 as the low. Light rain early, then remaining cloudy. And on Tuesday, considerable cloudiness, occasional rain showers in the afternoon, high of 58, low of 45, cloudy again early. And then on Wednesday, cloudy skies early, followed by partial clearing, high of 65, low of 44. Expect showers in the evening. Well, that is the weather brought to you right here from the WP 88.7 FM Weather Center. As I said, I read from two books since this is the Reading Circle, so we have the opportunity to do just that. Read. We kick the show off with doing what the show is titled. So I read from two books, the first being The Power of Being Thankful, 365 Devotions for Discovering the Strength of Gratitude. Strength in Waiting. I am looking and waiting for the Lord more than watchmen for the morning. I say more than watchmen for the morning. If you have a problem, don't merely pray for the problem to go away or that you will get something you need or desire. Pray that God will strengthen you during your waiting period. Pray that you will have the grace to wait with a thankful attitude. The Bible teaches us that when we pray, if we believe we have received and do not doubt, our prayer requests will be granted. But it does not say we will immediately get what we ask for, because God's timing is perfect. We can trust Him in the waiting process. I believe that the attitude we wait with partially determines how long we have to wait. An attitude of gratitude glorifies God and is a good witness of our faith to others. Our prayer of thanks for this morning: Father, help me learn to wait with a thankful attitude. I thank you that you have a good plan and purpose for me, and you know exactly what I need and when I need it. So I trust in you with a grateful heart. That's from the book, The Power of Being Thankful, 365 Devotions for Discovering the Strength of Gratitude. From Iyanla Van Zant's book, Until Today. For March the 12th, she says, I open my heart and mind to be aware that I can be led into believing things that are not true. There is a force that uses our fears and insecurities to keep us off track. It's called, quote, the deceptive intelligence, unquote. And it is a tricky little bugger. The deceptive intelligence will lead you to believe that all of your prayers have fallen on deaf ears, that all of your faith will prove to be fruitless. At the slightest sign of weakness on your part, the deceptive intelligence will send you off the deep end to chase shadows in the dark and abandon your dreams. The deceptive intelligence will use your mouth to say things that you cannot take back. It will use your body to do things that cannot be undone. The deceptive intelligence will keep you up at night. The deceptive intelligence will make you see things that are not there and hear things that are not said. You must be aware of the deceptive intelligence. More important, you must recognize that the deceptive intelligence is not lurking out there. Oh no, it is in you. If you are afraid of them, leery of this, doubtful of that, thinking of yourself as unworthy, undeserving, or out there on your own, the deceptive intelligence will move into your heart and mind. Set up housekeeping and have a banquet on your dreams. There is only one way to save yourself from the influence of the deceptive intelligence. That is to know the truth. The truth is, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. The deceptive intelligence may be in you, but you must know that neither inner nor outer enemies will prosper or take over unless you let them. Until today, you may have been employed by the deceptive intelligence to frighten yourself, confuse yourself, or to take yourself off course. Just for today, refuse to be used by the inner voices that will lead you to believe something other than the truth. Today, I am devoted to remembering that no weapon formed against me shall prosper. That's from the book Until Today by Iyanla Van Zant for March the 12th. Now that time has come that we've all been waiting for, and that is, who is the guest this morning? I'm about to answer that question. Our guest this morning is Dr. Angelise M. Rouse, and she is an educator, writer, and staunch special education advocate. Her interest focus is on creating a meaningful, lasting, and empowering educational experience for students with disabilities. Her research examines the development of opportunities to learn in special education classrooms and how these opportunities are negotiated differently by various groups of students. Inspired by her doctoral dissertation topic, Dr. Rouse's future research interests are in the overrepresentation of minorities in special education and the emotional development of African American young males. Dr. Rouse holds several educational certifications and has been thoroughly published on critical education issues. She has worked in several educational arenas, serving as a charter and public school teacher, all right now, school administrator, all right now, and college faculty, all right member. Her work ranges from all levels of education, from middle school through college. I'll say it all right now because that's commonalities that we have. Dr. Rouse holds a PhD in special education leadership and received a master's in organizational management and special education. Her first book, Especially for Me, A Student's Guide to Understanding the IEP, was written to help promote self-advocacy for special education students. She is currently working on her next publication, which will encourage and motivate young African American males to succeed and navigate life's challenges into adulthood. Dr. Rouse believes everyone has captivating stories to tell, and each story is as unique and as individual as the strands on our heads. She believes that our personal insight gives substance and credence to our experiences and ideas to bring forth change. It's time more educators position ourselves to make positive changes to educating all students, I know that's right, on new levels. Welcome to the Reading Circle microphones, Dr. Angelise M. Rouse. Dr. Rouse, good morning.
Yes, hi, Mark. Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for rising early to join me. Now, if I understand, you're in the East Coast, you're in the New Jersey area as well, correct?
I am. I'm in central southern New Jersey, good old Burlington Township area.
All right, Burlington. Oh, yeah, I know the area. I'm on the northern side. I'm up here in the Passaic County, but up in the Paterson, New Jersey, Wayne, New Jersey area. But I know the Burlington area. Matter of fact, I've done, which will lead me into one of the things I saw in your bio. I've done many Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity conferences down in that area.
Wow. Okay.
So I see you at Alpha Kappa Alpha, so that's why when I say, okay, you know what I'm talking about when I say Alpha Phi Alpha.
Absolutely. Welcome back, Brad. Welcome.
As on your side, I say skiwi, yes. All right. Well, I tell you what, we're going to share some information. As I said, we call these, since we're non-commercial, we're not commercial, so we're PSAs. We're public service announcements. And listening audience, you know the drill. You know what to do. I need you to get on all your social media sites. Now, see if you're like me. I have one of those like Hootsuite that whenever I send out one message, it goes out to all of my social media sites. So if you have something like that you can run your message through, great. That's quicker. But if you don't, I want you to get on it one at a time, however you want to do it. Let someone know that Dr. Angelise M. Rouse is on the air with me, and we're going to be talking education, and we're going to be talking special education, and we're going to be talking about our African American males. Topic that you won't want to miss. So get on all, like I said, your sites and let someone know that we are indeed on the air.
The cow says,
I love you.
To a child, it's just something else to play with. Lock it up, because 1.7 million children in the U.S. are living with unlocked and loaded guns. Get involved at ceasefireusa.org.
I started going cold turkey. Well, at least when I'm in the car.
I know I shouldn't do it, but it's so hard to stop. That's why I hide it from myself, so I won't be tempted.
I used to do it all the time. I stopped by locking it in my glove compartment.
My friend used to do it way too much. Now I turn it off when we're in the car.
My solution is simple. I just don't do it.
There are lots of ways to stop yourself and others from texting and driving. How will you stop? Tell us at stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the Reading Circle with your host, Marc Medley, where we talk about mostly things reading related or education related. That's why we're here on Saturday mornings early in the morning. The early bird catches the worm, and these are worms worth catching because what we do, we help make life better for others. And that's what Dr. Rouse's book is about in terms of working with our special education population. And her book is titled Especially for Me. It's especially the number 4, me. And the book was designed to provide support for special education students and to help promote self-advocacy. Especially for Me, A Student's Guide to IEP provides the resource students need not only for understanding the IEP process, but also to learn specific strategies to taking a more active role in their education. It's a fun, interactive role play, which makes this a must-read for anyone wishing to create a positive, lasting impact on the lives of special education students. All right. Normally, Dr. Rouse, my first question is usually along the lines of kind of when did the writing begin, or when did you realize you were going to be an author, or is that something you always wanted to do? So I'm going to ask that question, but I'm going to quickly move more into your focus on special education. So, I mean, as a child, were you like a child who loved to read and write, or did that come later?
Hi, good morning. No, it actually came later. I don't know how I wind up in this area. Sometimes you're just guided by another force. I actually wanted to be a nurse growing up. When I went to Rutgers, right here in New Jersey, and when I started my nursing program, it just wasn't for me. And then actually I graduated with a sociology major, and I later decided that I wanted to have more further my education into business. So actually, I started the educational world as a business administrator. So for years, I was a business administrator, and I used to fill in for special education classes. Teachers would quit, teachers wouldn't show up. So I said, let me fill in. I have a few minutes break, and I actually fell in love. So I went from being a business administrator to a special education teacher. So that's how I kind of fell upon being a special education teacher.
Wow, that's interesting. So business administrator, you were actually in the central office of a district?
Absolutely. It was a charter school, and it was a small charter school. So when you're in a charter school, it's like you do whatever you need to do.
Right.
And times the special education teachers wouldn't even show up. Or we would hire one, and they would work for 2 days, leaving a group of students without a teacher. So I would grab my laptop and I would go into the rooms, and I actually fell in love. That next semester, I re-enrolled into Rutgers, and I actually went back and got a second master's in special education, and that's how I wound up to be a special education teacher and in special ed. So it's a very funny story I like telling people.
No, I can relate. I originally did not start in education either. I started in business and did what they call alternate route and wound up as a teacher, and then worked my way through and wound up being a principal. And so I can truly understand that. But special education, there's a couple of things. First off, let's define for the listening audience who are not in education, what is the definition of special education?
Okay, sure. Special education programs are designed for those students who are mentally, physically, socially, or emotionally delayed. Due to these special requirements, students' needs cannot be met within a traditional classroom environment. So special education programs have services that we will adapt the content, teaching methods, and delivery instructions to meet the appropriate needs of every child.
Now, that's why I wanted the definition, because for teaching and educators in general, I've always had the highest regard. But then there are certain portions of education that kicks it up a notch. And those who work in special education, to me, they get my highest regard in terms of being an educator. My wife worked in special education for a little while. My teachers that I know at the school that I serve in terms of our special ed department, and I tell them all the time, I take my hat off to you, because you heard me reading earlier about that whole notion of learning how to wait and having patience. Well, when you work with the special ed population, you must have patience. because as you just heard Dr. Rouse say, their learning in some respects are delayed for whatever reason, whether it's a physical condition, whether it's a mental condition, a learning disability, or whatever. It's delayed. So it's not that they don't ever get it, because they do. It just takes a little bit longer, and you have to do different things. And that's why, as we call in general education, mainstreaming or what have you, they get that's the kids that quote unquote allegedly function normally, compared with the children who learn at a slower pace. Now, Dr. Rouse, I don't know, were you in an urban area or a suburban area in terms of the schools that you were serving?
I only have taught in the urban education aspects of teaching.
Okay.
All the urban schools, the big urban schools in New Jersey, I have taught at.
Okay. So I asked that question because I'm in an urban area as well. And truth be told, even many of our gen ed kids, it's not a whole lot of difference in the learning between them and our special ed children. And in a lot of places, it's a stark difference between the child that's in mainstream or general education versus the child that's in special education. There's another break in terms of special education where a child is truly born disabled or becomes disabled in an accident or what have you, where they're physically handicapped, either like maybe they can't walk, or either they're in a wheelchair, or either they have one of the multiple sclerosis, or either one of the other type diseases like that, where they really have a different challenge along with even the learning. And then there are other kids that are just mentally, it takes them a little bit longer. So there's all different facets of special education. Matter of fact, there's whole different classifications, because one of the things, whenever I was reading her bio, you heard me say the acronym IEP. Talk a little bit, Dr. Rouse, in terms of, again, for the listening audience, we're educating them. What is IEP? What does that stand for?
Sure, absolutely. If your child receives special education services, he will receive an individual educational program, IEP. It's the law. IEP is a court and legal document, and it spells out exactly your child or that child's learning needs, the services the school will provide, and how the progress will be measured.
For those of you, parents, if you're in the listening audience, if you're listening to the show this morning, one of two things. Either you have a child who's already in special education, so you are aware of some of the things we're talking about. My challenge to you, though, is make sure, if you're not doing it already, that you stay on top of the various child study teams, know your child's IEP, and ensure that they are getting the services that are offered to them or required of them by law. Because, Dr. Rouse, what I find, there are many parents who, it works both ways, because I have parents who know their child's IEP up, down, back, forth. Then I have others that have no clue of what's in their child's IEP.
Wow, yes, it's very important as a parent to stay on top of school and the IEP. The IEP, it looks like a statement of it. What it includes is it's a statement that has the annual educational goals. It has the accommodations and the modification that your child needs to be successful in his educational program. The special education support services that the school provide will help them reach their goals.
Absolutely. And not only parents, for those of you who are teaching, if you are servicing a child that is under one of the classifications of special education, you need to know the IEP as well. Because again, believe it or not, I have teachers who are serving the kids. Do you know what's in their IEP? Oh, well, no, I haven't read it. Well, how are you servicing them?
Right. That is very true. That's a very true statement. You have to know what's in the IEP. The children, also, I encourage, if they're over 14, that they also go to the IEP meetings and they also know what's on their IEP so they can be a voice to speak up. At the age of 14, the IEP services are transferred over to the student, and he can decide, what kind of program that he wants to go in. He can't decide, but he can put his input in along with child study team and along with the parents.
All right. If you've just joined us, my guest is Dr. Angelise Rouse, and we're talking about her book, especially the number 4, Me, A Student's Guide to the IEP. And we're just talking about special education in general because it has proliferated over time. This act, if I'm not mistaken, came to pass in the 70s. Am I correct?
Yes, absolutely.
I think it was like 1973, 1974, somewhere around there. This came into being in terms of being able to identify the needs of the child, stated in this plan, and then you're supposed to follow the plan. Now, a lot of times they get what we call accommodations, where a child may just need more time. It's not a matter of the child can't do it, but where maybe your general ed student may take an hour on the test, your special ed student may take an hour and a half, or it may take 2 hours. But they get those accommodations or modifications. Also, there's different classifications of special education. There's what we call LLD, that's a learning disability. We have BD, which is kind of like a behavioral disability. It's not that they can't learn, it's just that they have a hard time or they struggle with what's going on sometimes behaviorally for a lot of different reasons. You have, you got BD, you got LLD, you have MD, you
SLD,
have SLD,
MD,
CogMile.
Yes, it's just so many, Mark. And then we find that it's some students, they have a combination of 2 and 3 and 4 of those different, classifications. So there we have students that maybe, should be in a BD setting, or some that exhibit that they should be in an MD setting. So it's very, very challenging, as you said earlier, to be a special education instructor or teacher is very challenging, because it's our job to meet the individual needs of that particular student.
Absolutely. I'm going to share some more information with you, but get on it, because see, again, this is another one of those that's not just from the entertainment standpoint of the book that was written, or from just the fact that I have an author on here, but this one is really educational, particularly for you parents who have children, and for teachers out there who either you're a gen ed teacher or a special ed teacher. This is one we need to hear, because it is some pertinent information, because it makes the difference in the child's learning, which ultimately makes a difference in the child's quality of life one day. All right, so I'm going to share some more information with you. You know what to do. Get on all those social media sites.
This year, firefighters like Fire Chief James Hall will battle wildfires around the country in hopes of containing them. But firefighters can't do it alone.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile, or it can ignite and destroy your home and community.
Get fire adapted. Learn simple steps you can take now to reduce wildfire damage later at fireadapted.org. A public service message brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council. Learn more at fireadapted.org.
In 50 feet, turn left. Why are you driving so slowly?
After a few drinks, I'm taking it slow.
Well, you're not fooling the cop behind you.
What?
Get ready to pay in 0.1 miles.
Getting pulled over for buzz driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
You're listening to The Reading Circle with Marc Medley on Brave New Radio.
All right. Yes, indeed, you are. You're listening to The Reading Circle with Marc Medley. My guest this morning is Dr. Angelise Rouse. We are talking about special education, as that's what her first publication is dealing with. And we were, right before I shared the information with you, we were talking about the various classifications, and Dr. Rouse was sharing how you could get one child that has multiple. They cut across more than one classification. And so when we start talking about patients, that's why I know for the teachers who deal in special education, that is almost like a calling. You said originally you were starting out going to be a nurse. It's not much different. Any of those, I kind of like ministry, nursing, education, they're all kind of linked. They're all callings. They're all like, because everybody can't do it. Regardless of, particularly, I was just having this conversation yesterday during a professional development session with some of my teachers in terms of one of the things that bugs me with education is that it's a field that anybody think they can do. And that is just not true. I share with people all the time, in tongue-in-cheek and sarcastically, people will get laid off from a job and say, well, if I can't do anything else, I'll teach. Well, if I can't do anything, I just got fired, so I'll go teach. Like, no, they don't say that about any other profession. They don't say, well, I got just laid off, I'm going to be a doctor. Oh, well, I got laid off, I'm going to be a lawyer. They don't say that. You don't hear that in that profession. But in education, everybody thinks they can do it, and they can't. That is a misnomer. That's just not true as a myth. Yet everyone thinks that they can. And then, like I said, when you take it up a notch into special education, I know everybody cannot do that.
Right. Yes, it's definitely a calling. But one thing we need to also mention, once the children are placed in special ed, and they're in a public or private school, there's like 3 basic settings that I think is important that we need to discuss. You have the inclusive setting, you have the resource, and self-contained.
Correct.
Inclusive setting, we both know is students are educated with general ed. They just have either a teacher aide or a paraprofessional or another teacher to help them make modifications and accommodations. And then you have the resource that has the specialized pull-out teacher. And then, of course, you have the self-contained, which is one special education teacher that teach all the general classes and the academic classes. And then the children, they are, they're pulled out to have their special gym, business class, art, cooking, their special class. Then they're allowed to be pulled out and, interact with general ed, but most of their academic education is performed inside a self-contained classroom.
Dr. Ross is absolutely correct. And see, it's a process. It's not like first off, it's not like as a child is acting out in class and the teacher can say, I don't want them in my class no more. They have to go to special ed. No, it doesn't work that way. There's a whole process that the child has to go through and the family has to go through in terms of getting the child evaluated, getting the child tested, because that's where you kind of determine the proper placement. But even once you determine the placement, the first step in the process is called the least restrictive environment. In other words, you go from the least amount of special education, if you will, and you keep testing things to see, does that improve the child's performance? If it doesn't, then you move to the next level. So you could work your way up from being a child in a mainstream class to a child with a resource teacher to a child going into one of the classifications where you're in class with that same teacher and other peers all day long. But many people think that they just automatically going to jump from being in a mainstream class to a self-contained special ed class, and it doesn't happen that way. So that's something you need to distinguish as well. And as I said, stay on top of your child's IEP, any type of prescriptions or any type of recommendations that for medications. I don't know, Dr. Rouse, do you know Dr. Umar Johnson?
I had never heard of him, but of course, in the education field, we all know he's like a guru. So I definitely know of him. I have never personally met him.
Yeah, first off, he's a major league proponent of not medicating. He just thinks medication we just need to stay away from, and particularly with our African American males, which your next book is about.
Yes,
and he is a major league, and he is dogmatic on parents staying on top of that IEP and staying on top of the process. And there are some things with Dr. Umar and with Dr. Johnson I agree with, and others I don't. But that particular point, I'm with him. And I know I have parents at the school that I serve in. I take my hat off to many of them because they may come in any kind of countenance. They may be belligerent. They may be not the most well-educated themselves. They may come in and curse us out left, right, up, and down. But they know their SPED laws, and they know what their child ought to receive, and they do not have a problem with letting the school and the district know, if you do not service my child according to that IEP, there will be a lawsuit.
Right, exactly. And I always encourage my parents as well. No one knows their child better than the parents. So as an educator, we're in charge of 15, 16, 17, 18, 30 kids. That's why I always tell the parent, come in, meet with the teacher, meet with the child study team. If it's something that you don't understand, if it's something that you don't agree with, hey, let's, pull the teacher to the side, pull child study to the side. Let's talk about it. Again, it's all about the child. It's all about meeting his individual learning needs. So I agree. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And now going in terms of most of your, or if not all of your experience been in an urban area, do you find that we find more of our, and I hate the term minority because I don't use minority because I don't feel like I'm a minority to anything, but since that is the only term that we have, people of color, but do you find that minorities or people of color, there's a disproportionate amount that are in these classifications?
Absolutely, and that's actually what I based my doctoral dissertation topic on. It just seems like it's always, or more so, minority, and I agree, I don't like that term, but we have to use it. It's minority students, and let's take it a little step further, it seems like it's more boys. Out of my 16-plus years of teaching, I would say close to 98% was African-American males. So it's definitely a disproportionate rate in special education.
As you were conducting your research, did you find any drivers or root causes for that?
Well, the one basic one that I found as I did my research was that our African American boys, they learn differently. They might be a little bit more aggressive. They might be a little bit more outspoken. They might need different kinds of learning. And as teachers, it is up to us to reach our hands into our bags of tricks and pull out different strategies to meet those students. It doesn't mean that they can't learn. It just means that they just learn in a different manner.
Absolutely. And see, that's where, like, because if you ever get a chance to talk to Dr. Johnson, or if you ever get a chance to meet him, that's his thinking also. And that the reason that we have so many of our kids being classified is just the teacher don't know how to teach. In other words, they haven't studied the learning styles of, say, an African American, or the learning styles of a child coming up in an urban area, particularly in poverty or what have you. So when the kid is what might seem as acting out, they're really not. That they're being boys. They're being boys being brought up in that environment. So if we were to approach the teaching and the learning in a manner that they would understand, you wouldn't get the acting out. Now, some of them really, in some cases, folks in the listening audience, you do need to understand, some of the kids' medication is a necessity because there's an imbalance somewhere that really is causing them either not be able to sit still or not be able to focus or not be able to. But for a good number of the kids, that's not the case. You just got a kid that really is just, my mother used to call me fidgety when I was little. That's what she used to call me fidgety. Just can't sit still. Just can't do. You just have kids who are fidgety, and you need to learn how do I address, or do I go out and learn or find out how do I address a kid who's fidgety? What do I need to do for him or her? I mean, but what happens is a knee-jerk reaction. The kid doesn't listen to me the first time I say sit down. I automatically call the guidance counselor and the child study team and said this kid needs to be classified. And you'll get parents who may be unaware that goes along with this process. And before you know it, you have a child that really didn't need to be classified who's classified. And there's monies associated with it. It impacts district budgets. It impacts school budgets and so forth and so on. So there's a whole lot to the special education. And sometimes, which is the saddest part, the child really is, even though we say it's child first, the child is last.
Yes, absolutely. And that's why, again, we said it before, please, parents, you have to stay right on your student as far as not so much the student, the process. Once he's evaluated, once he is put into special education, please stay on child study team. Please understand the process and the IEP plan. It's very important. Absolutely very important.
So now you were doing your doctoral, and you decided to now put your studies into a book. When did you come to that decision? And then once you did that, what was kind of like your process in terms of getting it published? And, when you were putting pen to paper, did you have to make edits? Or how did the whole book come about?
The book came about from hundreds of IEP meetings that I would attend. I would go into this meeting, and the student, like I said, my background is junior high, high school. So the student will go to the meeting. We will leave this meeting. The parents are talking. The student is not really saying anything. The teachers are talking. And just the look on their face is like, what's going on? Especially those students are transferring from junior high to maybe high school. They have so many questions. Am I going to be riding a little yellow bus? Am I going to be put in a corner? Am I going to eat lunch with just special education students? There's so many students, so many questions that these students have. So I said, you know what? Why don't I put this information in a little booklet? So once they evaluate it, and if they have their meeting or when they have their meeting, this will be like a little takeaway for the student. It's just a little resource guide that explains the basic process of the IEP program. So that's how I said, you know what, I want to just put this in the book. And then when I started marketing or looking for an actual publishing company, I said, you know what, I'm going to publish it myself. So I self-published my first book myself. And out of that, I decided, you know what, let me help other people that's in the same position. And I decided to open up my own or start my own publishing company. So not only am I a teacher, I also have my publishing company that actually came out of, trying to find someone to publish my book. I said, you know what, I'll do it myself. And that's what happened.
Spoken like a true AKA. There's nothing.
That's funny.
For those out in the Greek world, particularly with the divine nine, if you will.
Yes.
For those of us in the Greek world, we know exactly what I'm talking about in terms of with the alphas, excellence is expected. That's I mean, with Alpha Phi Alpha, Alpha Kappa Alpha, we were kind of like the first ones out there. I mean, excellence is kind of expected out of that fraternity and those sororities. Not to say that it's not expected out the others, but each one has their own characteristics. Each one has their own reputation, and certainly the alphas are always known for excellence in some type of education or book studies or what have you. That's what we're kind of known for. So that's why I'm teasing her, saying spoken like a true AKA. She's actually a Renaissance woman. In other words, that's another example of you don't have to get locked into any one thing. You can do more than one thing. So not only is she a teacher, she also owns her own publishing company. Not only her own publishing company, she's an author. Not only an author, she's an adjunct professor. Not only a professor, so you don't have to be limited in what you do. And I'm sure that's a message as she gets into the king inside that somewhere resonates in there, that, there's just so much more to you than what you may think or what people may tell you. But your book is valuable because oddly enough, yesterday in our district was a professional development day where the kids went home at 1 o'clock and we had the last couple hours for PD. And I met with our personal assistants, our personal aides. And one of the questions that came up was, will I follow this? Because I think she has an 8th grade child or a 7th grade. She said, will I follow this child into high school? I said, I'm not sure. That's a very good question. And then one of the aides in the room says, yep, most likely you will, because I had a child that I was with through high school. And you're right. And it's interesting to work with the special ed population to try to destigmatize the fact that you're even classified. And for a lot of the kids, there is a stigma. Either they might get teased from the other children, you're special, or you in the ed, or you ride the little yellow bus. There's a whole jargon that goes along with special education. And the kids know the hot buttons to tease each other with. So part of the role of the teachers and administrators is to destigmatize it. Because the other thing is, Dr. Rouse, a lot of people think that once you're classified for life. And that's not true either.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It is a time that you can actually come, and I'm saying that with quotation, not have special education services. Actually, I had a parent last year who just wanted her son out of special education because he just complained that he didn't just like the makeup of the class. And she just, went into child study team and followed the regular process and declassified him. So it is possible. It is possible. But as I work in a high school, and the longer that they stay in special education, sometimes the parents think, just like you said, that they have to stay in special education, but they do not. They do not.
You can actually improve to the point where you can work yourself out of it. It's not a life sentence. And the other thing that I try to help the kids understand, I said, look, you need to understand, because this is the flip side of this, and I'm going to get back to your book in a minute. The child and sometimes the family will actually use the fact that they're special ed or their child is special ed as a crutch.
Right, exactly.
They will turn around if they perform some aberrant behavior or not producing. They say, well, what do you expect? I'm in the ed. Well, what do you expect? I'm special ed. Like, stop. Because when you go to the store, that store owner doesn't know anything about special education. When you're on your job interview, they're not going to ask you about special education. So don't get this mindset of, well, I can get used to failure or not producing because I'm special ed.
Right. That is so very true. And also, as of teaching, 11th and 12th graders for so many years, I try to get them, although I follow the modifications and accommodations, I try to get them to, I can do this without maybe having to depend so much on what's exactly into the IEP. Because like exactly what you said, once you graduate, the IEP doesn't follow with you through life, through applying for an application to, whatever you want to do, it doesn't apply. So that's exactly right. I've taught 11th and 12th graders for so many years. And I said, you know what, this is just something that it's just to assist you. But please don't be dependent on it. So you're absolutely correct about that.
Yeah, they will. They will try to use that as an excuse. Like, no. We're doing this in order to get you to the point where you're being the best that you can be. but it's not for you to have a fallback. I mean, I have a, because this is the other piece of it. What people don't understand with special ed, it's not always the intellectual part. It's not always the academic piece. I have some brilliant kids in special ed that are resource kids or even in self-contained. Matter of fact, one of my kids, a couple of them, we actually had them test for gifted and talented. And the other thing people don't realize is gifted and talented is the other end of the special ed spectrum.
Yes.
That's at the other end. So you can have kids that are brilliant that's in special ed. So now you've put the book together, you decided to publish on it. What was it like for you to start the publishing company? Because 40, 50 years ago, we didn't have a choice but to submit a manuscript and then have to go through the whole rejection process. But now you just not only self-publish, I'm starting my own company.
Yes, exactly. Well, just a lot of research, a lot of Googling, a lot of just staying up in the middle of the night and seeing what I can find on my own. I self-published my first one, and I'm going to publish my second one under my especially for me LLC. But and not only that, I designed and I decided, you know what, I want to design my own cover because I couldn't find book covers that actually had what I wanted it to actually have. So I'm also a graphic designer.
I told you, Renaissance woman.
Yeah, so much falls under that. So I actually, just decided, you know what, I just started my own company, have my own mission, I have my vision. The mission is out to empower youth through creative and easy understanding motivation tools to be successful in academic as they transition to adulthood. And my vision is to, as you said earlier, promote long-term life skills for minority youth. Yeah, and I believe that everyone should write at least one book. We all have a story to tell, and I think that at least everyone should write at least one book in their lifetime.
It's interesting you would say that because people are constantly challenging me to write a book. They're like, we know you at some point are going to have to write a book. And I generally tell people, up to this point, I've written music. I mean, the music that you're hearing in the background is my original CD. I use it as background music for the show. So music I've written, and certainly I write a blog. I constantly blog, and now I've started doing some things with my administrative team where I'm writing things about leadership design. So maybe one day I'll compile all of it and we'll come into a book. So I tend to agree with that statement that everyone really does have a book in them. It's just a matter of putting it down. If you've just joined us, we're down to the last segment of the Reading Circle with Marc Medley. I'm going to share some very quick information with you. My guest this morning is Dr. Angelise Rouse, and we are talking about special education. And that's an area of much interest to me for a lot of different reasons. And like I said, I take my hat off to those who work in special education because they almost have teaching squared. It's kind of like if we were to use a math metaphor, special education is like teaching to the second power. Or either teaching cubed, or either teaching whatever little number you want to put up as the exponent. When you start talking special education, regardless of which classification you're teaching in, you're taking it to definitely to the next level. So I'm going to share this information with you about other shows that are available here on WP 88.7 FM. And while I'm doing that, let somebody know that they already missed 45 minutes. Don't miss the last 15.
My name is Diamonds. I am a radio DJ in North Jersey. I broadcast on the frequency of 88.7 FM. I will be on the air every Saturday from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. when the sun is setting in the sky. If you are out there, if anyone is out there, I can provide music, I can provide entertainment. If there's anybody out there, anybody, please.
Club Melting Pot. Every Saturday from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Only on WP 88.7 FM, Brave New Radio.
You're listening to The Reading Circle with Marc Medley on Brave New Radio.
Yes, indeed. Now, Dr. Ross, I told you the hour was going to go fast. We are almost down to the last 10 minutes of show in the hour. And the last 3 to 5 minutes or so, I turn that over to you to promote, and you'll be able to talk about anything with the exception of price. But we're getting down to the last few minutes of the interview, and we haven't even really scratched the surface in terms of special education and everything. So I'm going to transition real quickly to, you wrote the book in terms of the IEPs for me, which I think is a great way, because first I said it was hard enough for the teacher and hard enough for the parent, but I'm sure for the child, he or she is most likely clueless to IEP as well. So the fact that you put together a guide that would really kind of answer some of their questions, I mean, that is that available? Now I know we'll talk about this in your last segment, the last 3 to 5, but is it available on Kindle?
No, not on Kindle. This was my very first one. This one's not available on Kindle, but here on after, all my other books will be.
So this one's not in the electronic version yet.
It is not yet, but I may transfer it over. Again, I'm still in the early stages. I just wrote the book, and it was just published late 2015.
Okay.
So I still have time to put it in Kindle, but it is available on Amazon.
Oh, okay. So I can order, because the reason I'm asking, because usually if it's available on Kindle, usually by the end of the Saturday, if I had the interview, I've downloaded the book. But if it's on Amazon, I'll order it, because it's something I would love to have in my library as well, that I can.
Oh, thank you.
So, because it does a couple of those for me, even though I am not the students, the target audience, but for me, it would help me be able to answer their questions. So I would love to be able to have, I'm going to order it to have in my library, and certainly the one that you are working on. Or is it done yet? Is the King book done yet? Or are you still working on it?
I'm in it's almost finished. I just have a few more things to add. It seems that every time I add a chapter and I get to the end, I want to add something else. And
absolutely.
I have 2 grown young men of my own, raising them, having so many African-American students over the past 16 years. And I tell people all the time, Mark, as a teacher, it's more than academics. It comes with the nurturing piece.
Yes.
So I bring also the academic plus the nurturing piece. And in my book, The King Inside is practical help for young African-American males. So I'm still writing it. I started off with 5 chapters. I'm now on chapter 7. And it's just so much I want to say from all the years of working with African-American males. And not only that, I think it's just my calling. My house is the house that, you find all the boys playing basketball in front of, or, we're having a cookout in the backyard, or downstairs playing the Xbox. I was always that mother when my kids were growing up. So with all that information, I'm just plugging it into the King Inside book. And hopefully I will have it out by spring of this year if I just stop adding chapters to it.
Well, I can understand that, because the topic is humongous. I mean, I don't even think I can come up with the adjective to describe the size and the scope of this topic, only because no matter what indicators that you look at, African American males, either by design or either by myth or either by perception, always falls on the bottom. And we all have to do everything that we can to first, as you said, because your book is titled The King Within You.
The King Inside.
The King Inside. Okay, The King Inside. Because that's the first, excuse me, because I was reading it and then I flipped off into something else on the computer. But The King Inside, that's the first thing, because the school that I work in is predominantly African American and Hispanic. And one of the first challenges we have is to understand. Do you understand, first off, you came from kings. We came from queens. We don't let the slavery story be the only thing that defines you. I think you got to know your history. You got to understand how slavery came. But you also need to understand where math came from. You need to understand how those pyramids were built. You need to understand that you came from, that there's greatness inside of you. So the fact that the book is right off the bat is titled The King Inside of You, that's the first step right there. Begin to love you, and then begin to, like I said, there is nothing that you cannot do. So I haven't even read the book yet, but I'm just saying all that to say is I know why the book could go hundreds of chapters.
Yes, absolutely. I started with, like I said, I just wanted 5 basic ones, but like I said, I'm on 7, and it can easily go to 12, 13, 15, but I'm going to put a stop to it because I do want to get it published and get it released.
That's for sure. And again, sorely needed, because it's, regardless of how many authors write on the subject, it's not enough. Because the message has to be, last Saturday when I left the studio, because we do every other week, we do a Saturday enrichment program at my school. And that's where a lot of the kids that got themselves in some like a little scrape throughout the couple of weeks in between, rather than have an out of school suspension, they come to the Saturday. It was really detention, but we flipped it and called it enrichment, which is not punitive, but they do have to come. But it gives us a chance to talk with them. They get a chance to see the administrators in a different light. We're dressed down. We're having a conversation. We're talking, this, that, and the other. And what came to me, I already knew it, but it hit me stark in the face last week, was things that we take for granted or assumed as taught in homes are not. We were having a discussion on respect last week. And Dr. Rouse, I tell you, what we thought the kids knew about respect, they didn't know. So now we get a clear understanding of, well, no wonder you're disrespecting everybody because you don't know what respect is.
Yes, exactly. Absolutely.
So it's the same thing. And I always tell, our African Americans, you got to know your history because, like, with our Jewish brothers and sisters, they're very clear on never again. From the time that child is born, when that child comes out, is hit with never again. And the education process starts all the way through. They know their history. And I'm constantly challenging our parents, look, you're going to have to teach our kids our history. And they don't, certainly at the school, they're getting it. I had a parent come to me during Black History Month and say, Mr. Medley, how come you all didn't assign a Black History Month essay? How come you didn't have the kids write? How come you didn't have them write an essay in your house? What is stopping you as the parent from either having a discussion or having them write an essay? I learned about my Black history from Jet magazine and Ebony magazine, and my father reading books and the what's the one on Malcolm X? The whole thing about Malcolm X. I'm trying to think of the title of it, but that's where I learned my Black history. From watching documentaries, but that does not happen in every home, and it should. And I'm saying all that to say a book like yours would help that process.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the whole idea. And I know we're running out of time, but going back to what you're saying, that when we work in urban school districts, it goes so beyond academics, as I said before. We have to teach some of the basic things that maybe you and I got from our parents that they're just not getting. So we have to go back and teach all the basic stuff, and then plus keep up with all the testing and all the things that is governed from the state and from the government. There's so many things that we do in the urban school districts that maybe non-urban school districts don't realize. We do probably more things by 10 o'clock than they do all day.
This is true.
Very funny.
It is, but funny, but true. We really, the scope of the task that's in front, because there's so many hats that are put on an urban educator. And I'm not saying suburbs don't have that, because people always ask me, would you rather teach in a suburb? I say, well, each has its own issues.
Right. Exactly.
Because I know whenever I was in alternate route school, a lot of my colleagues at the time who were trying to get teaching jobs because you have to, whenever you first come into alternate route, you get a temporary certificate. In order to get your real license from the state, you have to almost like do an internship. You have to teach for a year or so and go through the schooling. A lot of those suburban districts would not hire. They would not hire someone who was trying to get on. And the parents would come in there with their lawyers. No alternate route teacher is going to teach my child. So in the suburban areas, a lot of times you get parents walking into the building with their lawyers. That's an issue right in and of itself. And then you have other higher level drug issues such as heroin and LSD and guns. And some of those issues we don't have in the urban areas. So each one has their own, but they're challenges to education nonetheless. So we're down to our last few minutes. If we run over 7 o'clock, that's okay. Not a big deal, because I'm fortunate enough to have the entire 3 hours. I'm actually on the air 2 more hours where I play gospel music. So if I need to run over, that's not an issue. But I tell you, the time goes very quickly.
Yeah, it did. Indeed, it did.
It's very conversational, it's informational, but it goes very quick. So, again, in terms of we're looking at a possible, because this is what we'll do. Whenever The King Inside is released, I'll have you come back.
Oh, absolutely.
And we'll talk about, and we'll continue this discussion, and we'll talk about that particular book as well. But the one that you already have out on the market is like needed. And like I said, I am going to order my copy sometime in the next couple of days. So I think those that are publishing through Amazon, you get some type of a message, or if something hit or whatever.
Right.
Sometime in the next couple of days, you'll see an order came through for the book. It'll be me.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's been wonderful.
Well, I thank you. So this is the time you get an opportunity, like any book signings, how they can get a hold of the book. I know we just said Amazon, but do you have websites? How do they, if they need you to come out and speak, or this is your time to promote. And as I said, you can say anything with the exception of dollar amount. But other than that, you're good to go.
Sure. Yes, you can reach me at especiallyforme.com. It's my personal webpage. There's a link that you can actually buy the book through Amazon. Also, you'll have a way that you can contact me. You can fill out the contact list and it'll go directly to my personal email.
All right. Well, that brings us to the end of our interview. The upcoming book is The King Inside. The book that's already on the market is Especially For, it's the number, not FOR, but it's the actual number, Especially For Me, A Student's Guide to the IEP. It was released, as she said, late 2015. The King Inside is upcoming. And her publishing company, is it Especially For Me Publishing?
Yes, Special For Me LLC, yes.
There you go. Especiallyformepublishing.com is the website. Especially For Me LLC is the publishing company. And again, if you want to get in touch with Dr. Rouse, and I don't know, I may wind up happy. You never know. That's the beautiful thing about this show is I have met so many wonderful people that we wind up doing other things beyond the interview. And so you just never know. I may give you a holler about something, or either to talk to my SPED folks or order the book or whatever. We just never know. That's the good thing about networking.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. Okay.
Great. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, and have a wonderfully blessed day. Enjoy the weather. I don't know if it's as warm in southern New Jersey as it is in northern New Jersey. I suspect it is. But enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you so much, Mark. It was a pleasure.
Same here. Take care.